It can sometimes feel as though open world games are a dime a dozen these days, which can in turn make finding a good one incredibly challenging. This is because designing an interesting setting is just the first of many small steps toward making a great open world game, with developers also needing to fill their worlds with engaging and worthwhile content and then find ways to tie them into the narrative. Thankfully, there are many developers who have mastered this art, and collectively, these studios are responsible for some truly phenomenal games. The best open world games on the PlayStation 5 push the console to its absolute limits, offering players some of the most stunning locations in video game history. They're well worth a visit, particularly for those who are fans of the adventures. What's going on, everyone? Jeffrey here, welcome to Game Rant. In this video, I'll be showcasing 10 of the best open world games to check out right now on PS5, so let's hop into this list. Number 10, Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 was one of those games that experienced a very rocky start to life, to say the very least, with the futuristic RPG's launch being about as catastrophic as they come. The developers still have some way to go if they hope to reach No Man's Sky levels of redemption, but there can be no denying that the game is infinitely better than it was at launch, with crashes and weird graphical glitches now a lot less prevalent than they once were. Even now though, Cyberpunk 2077 is far from being the perfect game, but its open world setting is about as good as they come. Night City is an absolute joy to explore, with secrets waiting around every corner. Granted, some of those corners may also be hiding an angry gang member who won't think twice about blowing V's head off, but that's arguably all part of the fun, I guess. Night City feels more alive than most video game locations, and if nothing else, CD Projekt Red deserves a lot of credit for that. Number 9, No Man's Sky. Perhaps more open universe than open world, No Man's Sky boasts one of gaming's ultimate redemption arcs. Released amidst an ungodly amount of hype and expectation, to say that the game was initially a massive appointment would perhaps be a bit of an understatement to say the least. To Hello Games' credit though, the developer refused to give up on what was clearly a promising idea. Fast forward 7 years or so, and a series of patches have completely transformed the experience, bringing with them many of the missing features that were promised pre-launch, as well as plenty of others that weren't. In its current state, No Man's Sky is an incredibly enjoyable game and is more than worthy of its place among the very best open-world PS5 games. Number 8, Death Stranding Director's Cut. A lot of open world games find themselves facing criticism for the cookie-cutter approach that's typically taken when it comes to populating their open worlds, while others are condemned for feeling far too empty. At a glance, Death Stranding might seem like a game that's destined to fall into that second category, but there's actually something delightfully deliberate about its dreary and desolate world. The uninhabitable wasteland does a wonderful job of capturing the isolation felt by the game's protagonist, Sam. It's not much to look at, and exploring it rarely yields rewards, but there's a strange sense of satisfaction that can come from successfully navigating a particularly unhospitable piece of terrain. The setting's sparsity also helps to emphasize the unique nature of the game's social strand system, which does an excellent job of highlighting the importance of personal connections. Number 7, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition. It wouldn't be difficult to talk about the best open-world PS5 games without at least mentioning Skyrim, even if the game's PS5 port did come as a bit of a letdown overall. Much like its predecessors, the game helped to push the boundaries of what many thought possible in open-world titles, with its wonderfully well-realized setting offering deeper immersion than anything that came before it. A lot of this stems from the fact that just about anything is possible in Skyrim, particularly with the help of mods. Unlike a lot of other console games, the PS5 and Xbox Series ports of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition do actually feature fairly robust mod support, though some of those with access to a powerful PC would obviously probably be better off playing the game there instead. Number 6, Horizon Forbidden West. Horizon Forbidden West is one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 5, and boasts a huge open world full of interesting characters, enemies, and locations. As alluded to by the game's title, the further west players travel, the more dangerous their surroundings become, with powerful machines and an army of rebels and devotees standing between Aloy and her goals. The base version of the game is fantastic in its own right, but just like the Frozen Wilds DLC did with the game's predecessor, the Burning Shores expansion takes Horizon Forbidden West to a whole nother level. Rarely does a game manage to successfully blend so many ideas and gameplay mechanics together this seamlessly, nor are there many sequels that manage to improve on their predecessors quite so definitively. Number 5, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Prior to 2020, most people had never even heard of Tsushima Island, including many of those living in mainland Japan. The release of Ghost of Tsushima changed all of that though, with Sucker Punch Productions' open-world epic helping to put the small war-torn island firmly on the map. The development team did an incredible job of capturing the natural beauty as well, particularly when it comes to some of its more rural locales. The director's cut of the game offers even more impressive visuals and comes bundled with the Iki Island DLC. Most people will never get an opportunity to visit either of the two islands in person, but those who have played the game will, in some ways, feel as though they've already been there. Such is the level of detail that went into creating the game's stunning open world. The story is fantastic too, particularly for those with an interest in history or the ways of the samurai. Number 4. Hogwarts Legacy. Trying to compare Hogwarts Legacy to the best open world games on the PlayStation 5 is an incredibly tricky task. On the one hand, it's probably the best Harry Potter game ever made, and does an incredible job of allowing players to live out all of their Wizarding World fantasies while adding to the series' rich lore. However, just as its RPG mechanics are fairly generic, most seem to be in agreement that Hogwarts Legacy is a great game in spite of its open world mechanics rather than because of them. Other than Hogsmeade, being able to explore the areas surrounding the titular castle adds very little to the overall experience. In fact, many of these areas arguably dilute and detract from the game's quality by forcing the player to trek across an unnecessarily large landscape and engage with content that feels like it's only really there for the sake of making the map feel just a bit less barren. Again, Hogwarts Legacy is a great game, and thus, technically speaking, a great open world game, but those expecting an Elder Scrolls style experience will undoubtedly be left wanting more. But make no mistake about it, Hogwarts Legacy still weaves a magical tapestry of whimsy, wonder, and oodles of fun for anyone wanting to immerse themselves in the Wizarding world. Number 3. Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Games like Yakuza have shown that reusing the same locations in subsequent installments can be incredibly effective, and thus provide the perfect blueprint for Insomniac games to follow. However, New York is a lot bigger than Kamurocho, making the sheer size and scale of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that much more impressive. To suggest that this is just a reskin would be doing the game a massive disservice though, as it builds upon the strong foundations laid by its predecessors in almost every single way. The game's open world is full of brand new activities and objectives for players to lose themselves in, and the main narrative is arguably one of the best Spider-Man video game storylines to date. Number 2. Elden Ring. From Software games have always featured incredible world building, so the thought of Miyazaki and company teaming up with the writer of the A Song of Ice and Fire series was a tantalizing one to many people. Unsurprisingly, the partnership between George R.R. Martin and the Japanese studio proved to be an incredibly fruitful one, as evidenced by the critical and commercial success of Elden Ring. The lands between break free from a lot of the tired tropes that plague so many of the game's peers, daring to be different at a time when others would rather just play it safe. The world of Elden Ring is also wonderfully well defined, with Martin serving up the kind of lore that helped to make Game of Thrones such a huge success. Unlike Game of Thrones though, Elden Ring manages to stick the landing, providing an engrossing and engaging experience from start to finish. Number 1. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher games have always been renowned for their fantastic settings, but The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt takes things to a whole nother level. The continent on which the game takes place is just begging to be explored, and rewards those who oblige with some of the best side quests and character interactions in the history of gaming. It's not only one of the best open world games on the PS5, but one of the best open world games of all time. Few games rely on the excellence of their open worlds quite as heavily as The Witcher 3, with most of the game's peers using their settings to pad out their length or provide players with something to do in their downtime. At times though, it genuinely feels as though The Witcher 3's gameplay and story were designed around the game's world rather than the other way around. In that sense, it's much more than just a video game setting, it's a living, breathing world. And there we have it everyone, 10 of the very best PS5 open world games to check out when you get the chance. Thank you so much for watching this video from Game Rant. Be sure to check out all sorts of other top-notch gaming content, including more lists, news, reviews, guides, originals, and so much more right here on Game Rant. Have a truly wonderful and happy day everyone. We'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.